World Igbo Congress, other international groups calls on Donald J. Trump for immediate intervention on the killings in Nigeria's southeast region. The World Igbo Congress (WIC) and several other international groups have joined the International Society for Civil Liberties and Rule of Law Inter-Society in condemning in strongest terms the extrajudicial killings, forced disappearance and destructions in Nigeria's southeast region by state actors and non-state actors. The groups, which are also backed by religious leaders, academic experts and human rights lawyers, while expressing their support for the Inter-Society's reports on war zone situation in eastern Nigeria, called on the United Nations and the International Criminal Court, ICC, to investigate the issues raised in the reports. They called on the UN human rights rapporteurs and the International Criminal Court to urgently intervene, investigate, and hold perpetrators involved in the killings in the Southeast accountable. They also urged the incoming US President, Donald Trump's administration, to adopt the Inter-Society's reports as working documents on human rights and international development partnership policies on Nigeria and its government. The reports, which were unveiled on December 22, 2024, in Enugu State in the southeast, contained revelations regarding the war zone situation in eastern Nigeria, particularly in the southeast, covering August 2015 to December 2024, or a period of 9 years and 4 months. The reports, titled Ocean of Innocent Blood Flowing in Eastern Nigeria, 282 pages, and Human Rights Made in Nigeria, 154 pages, are a catalogue of armed state actor and armed non-state actor atrocities in the East since August 2015, August 30, 2015, to December 31, 2024. The report stated that during the period under review, the Nigerian Security Forces (NSFS) unlawfully killed 32,300 defenseless citizens, including the abducted and disappeared, tortured and bodily lacerated tens of thousands, burned down or razed 6,000 civilian homes and allied properties valued at over 450 billion naira, raided 300 defenseless Igbo communities, sacked over 180,000 inhabitants, and frightened and forced over 1 million others to flee their homes to escape being tracked down, falsely labeled and shot and killed or abducted and detained indefinitely or permanently disappeared, during which 2 government-linked and non-government-linked armed non-state actors in their several thousands killed over 14,500 defenseless citizens, abducted over 65,000 others, and forced estimated 55,000 of them to pay ransoms estimated at over 500 billion naira and extra 50 billion naira realized from sold Millennium cars seized from the abducted victims, and razed or burned down civilian properties valued at over 60 billion naira, and aided by biased and compromised Nigerian security forces to influx and proliferate estimated 2.7 million illicit small arms and light weapons across eastern Nigeria. The Inter-Society's special reports further catalogued and exposed massive arbitrary arrests, perpetual detentions arising from uninvestigated and untriable phantom allegations, what it described as kangaroo arraignments, late-night abduction and face-bagging of unarmed Igbo civilians to secret military detention facilities in northern Nigeria, torture and bodily lacerations. Others are open killings, secret, extralegal and extrajudicial executions, innumerable cases of enforced disappearances and victims' dead bodies, criminal interments, perpetual concealment of the arrested and abducted citizens' whereabouts, and denial of access to their families, lawyers and physicians, invasion and wanton destruction of civilian dwelling houses and allied properties, indiscriminate false labeling, mass criminalization, class stigmatization and ethno-religious profiling on the grounds of ethnicity and religion, selective and discriminatory law enforcements and their operations, rampancy of prosecutorial vindictiveness and hearsay conclusions, unchecked and untamed military and police roadblock and barrack extortions and other corrupt practices, including monetization and commercialization of criminal investigations and prosecutions, etc., all of which had arisen from military siege and terror in eastern Nigeria since August 2015, using IPOB and Biafra terrorism as a pretext or cover. The Inter-Society had also in its reports found that out of every 15 unarmed citizens arrested by police crack squads, 7 run the high risk of not returning to their families alive. Out of every 15 civilian houses or homes burned down or wantonly destroyed by military personnel or police crack squads, the same number 15 are most likely not linked to military necessity and ought not to have been razed or burned down or wantonly destroyed. Out of every 15 criminal allegations, ESN Biafra EPOB terrorism, leveled against members of indigenous Southeast and Igbo South civilian population, most likely do not have anything in connection with such controversial or questionable allegations. All the above is in addition to the fact that 95% of police or military or spy police-issued security intelligence information and law enforcement operations reports in the Southeast and the South are highly questionable and most likely to have been concocted or twisted or falsified. The group said, "We hereby call on the UN Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial, summary or arbitrary executions, the UN Special Rapporteur on torture and other cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment, the UN Special Rapporteur on human rights and religious freedom, the UN Special Rapporteur on human rights defenders, the UN Special Rapporteur on human rights of the internally displaced people, the UN Working Group on arbitrary arrest and detention, the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to adequate housing, anti-domicide, the UN Special Rapporteur on basic principles of justice for victims of crime and abuse of office, the UN Special Rapporteur on trafficking in persons, the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs, New York, USA, and the Chief Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, ICC, to urgently intervene, investigate and identify and hold armed state actor and armed non-state actor perpetrators involved accountable and sanction public office holders found in the reports to have aided, abetted and sponsored such grievous crimes or conduct atrocities and have them sanctioned appropriately. We also urge the incoming Trump administration in the United States to adopt the reports as working documents in the assessment of Nigeria's human rights records and the USA's future international development partnership with the government of Nigeria. The incoming Donald administration is particularly called upon to ensure that the government of Nigeria and the country's security forces high commands are compelled to respect the international freedom of worship or belief and end such discrimination or risk being enlisted in the USA's Country of Particular Concern CPC under her International Religious Freedom Act, IRFA, of 1998. In line with the Inter-Society's 76 strong recommendations contained in the special reports, we are calling on Nigeria's international development partners, including all member states of the EU, the United States, the United Kingdom and Canada, etc., to critically study the reports and have them reflected in future development and defense, security and safety assistance and supports geared toward promotion of democracy, rule of law, human rights and humanitarianism in Nigeria, particularly in the East, and ensure that such development and military supports or assistance are not channeled into instruments of violence or state terror and persecution against defenseless members of the Eastern civilian population and their properties. The above democracies called upon are urged to ensure that such development assistance and human rights and humanitarian supports amounting to billions of dollars yearly are not channeled into extrajudicial killings, abductions, torture and other cruel treatments, enforced disappearances, civilian house burnings, false labeling, class criminalization, ethno-religious profiling and persecution, prosecutorial vindictiveness and hearsay conclusions, etc., against defense Eastern civilian population and their defenseless properties. The government of Nigeria shall further be compelled to frontally address pandemic and endemic corruption in the country's security, military, police and secret police's sector and digitalize law enforcement operations, including preventive, detective, investigative policing and crime detection, all of which have become a modern trend in the mother world. More so when digital policing security has become the speediest way by which struggling countries have leveled up with advanced countries, owing to the fact it is quantitative, qualitative, cheaper, available, avoidable, less corrupt human rights and rule of law, friendly and importable or exportable. The statement and the demands was jointly signed by Luke Nwanunu, the coordinator, chairman of Igbo Genocide Survivors Committee, Ekwenche Research Institute and Organization, Chicago, Illinois, USA. Prof. Justin Akujezi, Board Chairman of Ekwenche Research Institute and Organization, Chicago, Illinois, United States. Father Ignatius Manquocha, Chair, Home Affairs, Ekwenche Research Institute and Organization, Chicago, Illinois, United States. NZE Amadibube Mbama, Chair, Global Igbo Leaders Guild, United States. Chief John Ugonna Gregg, American, International Human Rights and Democracy Campaigner, United States of America. Stay tuned for more updates, stay safe, and have a blessed day.